When we talk about portraying contrast in films, it's usually in regard to either topics that are being addressed or the visual elements themselves. Here it uses visual elements to convey the topics of the story. Spoilers ahead. I have to say it, I like Cuarón movies. And for a while, it seemed that he was separating himself from this more contained storytelling and going to the bigger budget route. Harry Potter, Children of Men, which is great, and Gravity made me think that the Cuarón of Y tu mamá también was no more. To my surprise, Roma goes a very similar route to Y tu mamá también. It follows this group of characters, this family, but particularly their maid, Cleo. She's of indigenous origin, and instead of making a film that takes a clear side during the events of early 70s Mexico, it simply shows us these characters existing in this reality. We get to see the terror of the Halconazo or the Corpus Christi massacre. We see that this is a well-off family, of course. They're not rich, but well-off enough to afford certain luxuries. Here's where the contrast begins. It's black and white. Why would it be black and white? There are a number of reasons to do that. One could be to make it feel more cinematic, to focus on the framing rather than the colors. That's another one. But I think it's because there's nothing more contrasting than black and white. I mean, there's a reason why people say nothing is either black or white. I don't know if you've heard that. And it's no coincidence that most of the better off people in this film and in 1970s Mexico were primarily white. And the darker complexioning individuals were, and to a large extent still are, looked down upon because of their skin color. So, when it's being shot in black and white, we can see a much more marked difference between Cleo and the family. But Cuarón also uses black and white to focus on the framing, and it looks amazing. There are a lot of breathtaking shots here, incredibly moving and deeply personal. The contrast doesn't stop there. All of the movie is about contrast. Another way of calling it is wealth inequality. From Cleo's room to her lifestyle, how she's treated by the family, she's there to serve them every single minute of the day. We see what happens when she gets pregnant and the baby's dad runs away from his responsibilities. Another contrast is how women and men deal with pregnancy. While he could avoid her, she couldn't avoid the situation. This is where the film gets very interesting. Cleo tells her boss that she's pregnant. During the same time, the boss realizes that her husband won't come back. Yet another case of men running away from their responsibilities. So now both the mother of the kids and Cleo are in the same predicament, on paper, being abandoned by men that should be taking responsibility but aren't. But although they are in the same situation on paper, their realities couldn't be more contrasting. The housewife has a house, for starters, cars, probably had access to some money, and of course had the help of maids. Cleo had nothing. So yeah, both were going through a rough situation, but one was less life-altering than the other. Both were pretty crappy, but one was significantly worse than the other. We have to be honest here. The kids loved Cleo, and for good reason. She basically raised them. We even get to see how one of the kids was singing a lullaby in Cleo's dialect. And even if the dad and the mother sometimes treated Cleo as most people treat their Amazon Echo Dot, meaning they just give them orders and ignore them for the rest of the time, we can see that they had a level of appreciation for her. The housewife ends up feeling pity for her for losing her baby, and the doctor and Dr. Dad shows some sort of sympathy for Cleo when he sees her in the hospital. The whole pregnancy thing was honestly exhausting. You can clearly see why and how she wouldn't want that kid. And it hurt her that the baby was born dead, but what was really torturing her was that she really didn't want him to begin with. Having a baby in those conditions would be life-wrecking. Cleo confesses to this right after risking her own life to save the kids she has helped raise for all these years. That beach scene is just beautiful. I don't have anything more to say about that. There are a lot of memorable sequences, actually. Even the beginning credits are quite stunning and quite moving and very, very descriptive. The way this guy is revealed by dumping a bucket of water on the floor is just masterful. The way the doctor parks the car in the garage, making it clear that it's perhaps a bit big for that house, is also masterful. The acting is quite good actually, but it's clear that Yalitza is the reason this movie exists. It's a very contained performance, silent most of the time. And this is accurate, as these women are thought to not speak unless necessary, to not upset their bosses. The film shows us a lot of the reasons and the state of the country for those tragic events to happen during the 70s. It is as if privilege had blinded that part of society, and the blindfold was taken all of a sudden. It's heartbreaking to see the living conditions of Cleo's hometown. There's dirt and more dirt. And yet, people still fight over that. Land that the only thing it had to offer was the land itself. A town with no schools and no government presence. Almost no man's land. And we also see some of the people from that town during the riots. Overall, Cuaron delivered a brilliant, profound film about a servant in a middle-class Mexican family during the socially troubled times of the 1970s. The Academy Awards that it won were well earned. That's all I have to say. As always, thank you for watching. See you next time.